increasing our difficulty. So just remember when we're going through these problems, if you guys want to follow your step-by-step process, that's perfectly fine. In this case, all we're simply going to do is, I don't know why that, there we go. So again, just following the step-by-step. And if you guys want to write down the steps next to them, that's perfectly fine. If you're dealing with the function f of x, I'd like to replace the y in for f of x. And technically, you don't have to replace y for f of x because y and f of x are really interchangeable. They're just kind of depending if we're talking about equations or functions. But I think it's easier to use y than f of x. So that's why it's typically preferred to do that. But it's really not something that's actually necessary. The next thing is we're going to swap the x and y variables. This is not necessary. Joseph, did you already do this problem? OK. So the next thing is we're going to swap the variables, which will become very important in our discussion later today. And we'll talk more about that, why that's the case here in a second. For right now, just kind of know that's what you need to do. And then step number 3 is to solve for y. So now I'm just going to use my inverse operations to solve for y. So first thing I do is always undo addition and subtraction first. Then undo multiplication and division. And you can divide that too using like the and then step 4 is we don't want to set this equal to y. We want to use inverse notation because remember this represents our function inverse. I do not like using fractions. You could also write this as 1/2 x plus 7/2. That's the same thing. But I'd prefer that you write it in that slope-intercept kind of form rather than leaving it as x plus 7 over 2. However,